Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, I wanted to go over what you should be bringing to Nats if you're not playing the big three when it comes to Lexi, Dromai, and Icelander. I've been trying to find a way to formulate this video to where it's like not too in-depth, but it's just kind of like an overarching thing. And I just wanted to kind of talk about it. I want to get your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree, and we'll just kind of go from there. So as you can see right here, this is my Twitter. I put on... First off, if you want to, go follow me down below. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for joining. If you're a long-standing member, I really appreciate y'all. Feel free to check out the Patreon, the Discord down below, as well as my Twitter. But I put out a tweet where I took the July stats from Talishar, which I'll pull up here more closely. And basically, I took the win or loss percentage, or just matchup percentage, of each hero that's not Lexi, Icelander, or Jermai, and I put them side by side as well as their overall win percentage. Now, when it comes to Talishar, I know the results are a grain of salt. There's a lot of variables that you can't, always see. Player skill difference is huge, and I know like you have brand new players to the game playing on that account. You have like people actually testing, and you have people in between. So I get it, but you only can view so many different variables, right? You either can view the variable of like all players across the game, or you can view like the super high level players. But even at that point, there's some holes in there too, because they're teching for certain things, there's very small sample size, things of that nature. So I'm not saying use the Talishar data as like the Bible on what to take to Nats. I'm just using it because it's really the only game-wide reference we have as far as matchup spread. And I think honestly it's pretty accurate for July. This was the July list. There was thousands of games played on Talishar during July, and basically from a data perspective, game-wide, I'm going to use game-wide as a term because this pretty much shows like game-wide from new player to experienced player what the matchup spread is. The top three technically are Azalea, Bravo, and Briar. Now the way I did this was if it's a 10% matchup spread or more, I did either red or green depending on which way it went, right? So if it's 55% or higher or 45% or lower, it's either green or red, except for Bravo right here. I messed that up in the tweet. I can fix that. So imagine this right here is red technically. And basically what I said was, okay, how many of the big three are they favored into? How many are they not favored into? And how many are they kind of even with, which is within 10%? Because I think when you're within 10% matchup spread, now it starts to have, skill difference with how good you are with the hero, what, hot draws versus non-hot draws, how you draw as a player, and things of that nature. So I think that really plays a factor. But if you look at it, so in green, so like Arachne is really favored in Alexi, at least in July, they were, but really bad in Icelander and Jermai, so on and so forth. Goes all the way down the line. So basically, there are some heroes that are straight red across the board. Bolton's really bad into the big three. Vincett's really bad into the big three. Dorinthia is a outlier. Do not take Dorinthia's for super big face value. This should technically be yellow too. But Dorinthia, it combines Axis Dory and regular Dory, so you only can take that with a grain of salt. But I do think that the top of this leaderboard is actually pretty accurate. I think Azalea, Bravo, and Briar, and even for this, have the best matchup spread into the big three. I think Azalea, in my opinion, is a sleeper pick when it comes to the top three. If you're trying to take a deck that can play into the top three. Now, I do think we're going to have a lot less Dromai than we've been having. I think Dromai is a very high skill level deck. I think you're not going to see as many of them. I think Lexi's gotten even better than Jermai. They've learned how to play around it. Icelander's even gotten better. Like there's a lot of the decks that Jermai you have to be a really skilled pilot to do well into. And I think that Jermai is going to be seen less of. However, I do think that Jermai is polarizing enough to where you have to keep her in the big three. Like there's certain decks that you just straight up like can't play because of Jermai. Like Arachne is one. You really can't play it that well because of Jermai. There's a couple. Basically, Assassin really struggles in a Jermai. Vincett doesn't like Jermai very much. There's a lot of, as you can see, a lot of decks. Dash doesn't do well in a Jermai that just struggle a little bit into that hero. Even Azalea at 42%. So, like, her average matchup spread is very polarizing, so she has an effect on the meta. But I think that Azalea, personally, I think this matches up with what my thoughts are is that Azalea is the best deck to run if you are running something that you want to counter or try to play into those big three. The Lexi matchup, I think, is truly 50-50. I think it probably just skewed Azalea's way in July on Talishar. But I do think Azalea, if I had to give, even at a high level, I think Azalea is slightly favored into Lexi. I think Azalea is probably like 52-53% if I had to give an arbitrary percentage number. Icelander truly is 50-50. That matchup is, even with Warmongers being a thing now, and I know it is with Icelander, it's still 50-50 in my opinion. If they get out their Channel Lake Frigids and like their disruption early, it's really bad for Azalea. But if Azalea can start to get tempo on Icelander and use different things that hurt Icelander's arsenal, especially with Dominate, then she literally just runs over Icelander. So it's like those games are very much like who gets their power cards first, and it's very evenly matched. And then Dromai is still really bad for Azalea, but it's gotten better, and skilled Azaleas can play into Dromai and win. We've seen Levi do it. We've seen other players do it. It's a winnable matchup. It's not fun. It's not favored, but it's winnable. But definitely unfavored. Azalea has a favored matchup in the big three. She has an even matchup in the big three, and she has a bad matchup. Pretty even across the board. Then you have Bravo, which literally is just even across the board. And I also agree with this. He is slightly unfavored in Alexi, but is winnable. Very good in Icelander with the Dominate abilities, as long as you know how to, use your resources properly. And then Dromai is a very skill-intensive matchup. So Bravo is pretty even across the board. And then finally, Briar does struggle a little bit in Alexi, I think, typically. Really has to draw well and have a very skilled pilot. But it's pretty even across Dromai and Icelander. And as you can see into the field, which is this last section over here, they're also really good into the field. So I think these three decks are probably the best bet if you're not playing the big three. And the funny thing is, if you look at most tier lists, people have decks like Fi and Katsu and Dash and what else? Usually in the top. Uziri's usually in the top. But really, those decks are pretty good into the field, and they're just good, solid decks. Like Fi has a positive win rate into all of the decks overall. So does Katsu, so they're really good for that. You have Viserai, who I think also is a decent one. It's just the Lexi matchup's kind of abysmal. You have to really hot draw to win that. And Uziri is pretty 50-50. So all these are really good. But I think these three are the best: Azalea, Bravo, and Briar. I'd love to know y'all's thoughts, though. I think it's definitely different. Skill does have a huge difference into it, like, hero skill, pilot skill, how you draw, what you're teching for. I do know most people are going to hit me back in the comments with Warmonger's diplomacy is huge, and it just kills Azalea. It does hurt Azalea. I've been playing a lot of Azalea on Talishar lately just because it's like the most fun hero for me to play right now. And Warmonger's diplomacy definitely can really suck. But it really sucks when it's super timely. If it's just a normal Warmongers, like you have them on the back foot and they Warmongers you just fire off a 5-power arrow, threaten a little bit of damage, and then arsenal and call it a day. But overall, it does hurt, and with skill pilots who know how to use it, it can hurt. But I don't think it's like a Azalea killer. And also, I think, at least this is completely hearsay, but I'm seeing a lot of people say that people are like slightly going away from Warmongers a little bit if you're not like an Icelander or someone who can, or a Fi or Katsu who can run it really naturally. They're usually in the sideboard, like one or two of them, usually two. So it can hurt you, but it's not like every deck in the format is running Warmongers to counter you, right? Lexi's not going to run it. Dromai might run it, but probably not. I don't know. I'm not a Dromai player. I would think like a 3-block blue, maybe you run it. It depends what type of Dromai it is, or maybe they have it sideboarded. But a lot of these decks will run it, but some of them won't because it hurts them. So overall, I do think it's those three. If I had to give a second iteration, it's probably Fi and Katsu, but Fi and Katsu just both struggle into literally the top two decks in the format. Lexi and Icelander, like Dromai is kind of tier 1.5, but these two decks right here, like Fi and Katsu, even though they're high on most people's tier list, they actually struggle very, very heavily into those two decks, right? And so it's interesting to see people put those decks so high when they struggle so bad. Uziri is also, I think, a really good pick just because you're going to see so many Lexi. If you can figure out the Icelander matchup, even though it's really bad, and you have to dodge Dromai pretty much. But if you can get lucky and just get Uziri's Lexi's and get field opponents most of the time, I think Uziri is a good pick as well. But that's really it. I still think it's these three. I think it's going to stay these three. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you're taking the Nats. I personally am not going to Nats. Both just money and time does not permit me to travel for Fab. I really envy y'all in the nicest way possible for people who travel all over the place for Flesh and Blood tournaments. I don't have time for that. I basically have to hope there's one in Dallas, which there's a call in Dallas in October, so that's going to be super fun. I'll be there. If you're going to be there, let me know. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. If you disagree with this type of stuff, it's fine. I just use this as one data point because I think it's a kind of a cool data point to look at game wide and, get community's thoughts on it, good or bad. But yeah, if you enjoy this type of content, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. If not, it's totally fine. Go to our Flesh and Blood creator, leave a like, comment, subscribe on their stuff so we can get more people seeing this game. And I will see y'all next time on TCG Talk. Thank y'all so much.